To start, I wanted to show you the pages that I printed out for the hem version. So we have page 1, 2, 5, 6, and 11 for the straps. It's important that you print your pattern at 100% in your printer settings, and you can always double check with the 1-inch square. Next, I'm going to use tape to assemble my pattern, and you'll notice that there is this star shape in the corner of every page. So what we're going to do is make sure that we are connecting the star and our lines like this, overlapping everything and making sure that it's all lined up, the star and our lines. So just about there should be perfect. And I'm going to do the same for the other side of our cami. So here is that side. I already have some tape on there. So all I'm going to do is line it up with the star and line it up with my lines. And there is another star over here as well to help you line it up. And then once you feel like you have it, you can just press your tape and we're ready to cut our pattern pieces. Don't mind my cutting mat, I am desperately needing a new one. But for this pattern, I'm going to be using my rotary blade that I use for paper, and I have a separate rotary blade for fabric. I find that this just cuts on time, so we're not having to use scissors and all of that. And I'm going to cut all the pattern pieces and come back. So for the hem version, here is all the pieces that we need: the front, the back, the neck bands for the front and the back, and then our straps. For this project, I'm going to use this beautiful rib knit that Threadbear sold, I believe, last year in a bundle, and I still have a nice piece left to work with, so we're going to use that. And you'll notice that all of the pieces have a fold line here, so all of these will need to be cut on the fold. And there's also a stretch line, so whatever is the stretchiest side of your fabric is the way that you want to cut it. So for me, it's this way. I'm going to go ahead and turn my fabric so y'all can see. So here is the selvage end, and then I'm just going to fold it over this way, just wide enough for my pattern piece to fit on there. If you want to adjust it and save a little more fabric, you can, but here is what that looks like. And now I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the paper and cut all around the pattern piece. So here's a tip: whenever you have to cut two of something, for the straps we will need two. So all I'm going to do is fold my fabric over itself so that we can cut two at once. I'm all about saving some time wherever I can, so these little hacks do add up and save you time, especially if you're sewing to sell or anything like that. So I'm just gonna fold it like that, and then I can cut all around once. All right, so a few things to know after you cut your pattern pieces: the back neckband is shorter than the front, so that's how you'll keep track of those two. And then the back piece has this straight edge versus the front piece with this more of an angular curved edge. That's for those pieces. And then for our straps, we have this handy dandy little point here to let us know where the gap is going to start for our straps. So I'm just going to take a pin and try and only pin the front here of one of my straps like this, and I'm going to put a pin on all 4 spots for my strap here. So all you need to do is make sure that you kind of invert it so that we're getting the exact same on both sides, and then just put a pin in there. You can also snip your fabric if you prefer to mark it that way, or if you have something like a fabric wash away marker. Whatever you want to do to mark these 4 points is up to you, but I'm just going to use my handy pins here. I'm going to do the same for both straps. I put those aside for now because the first step is to open up our front and back pieces. Again, the front has more of a curve like this versus the back is just straight like this. And again, the front neckband is longer than the back neckband. So what I'm going to do is find my front neckband, and we're going to fold it wrong sides together. So the right side of the fabric, the pretty side, should be out on both sides. And we are going to sew this on to our neckband like so. We'll have to stretch a little bit. Here you can decide if you want to add some pins to this to kind of help you with the stretching process, but it is very minimal, so I'm just going to go ahead and serge it on like that. And same for the back piece. I'm going to fold it wrong sides together, raw edges touching like this, and I'm going to lay it on. And as you can see, it is shorter than the back piece, but all we need to do is stretch it to meet that end. And again, you can add pins here if you would like, clips, whatever will make you more comfortable, but I'm just going to go ahead and sew that together now. All right, so I'm going to be using my serger for the majority of the sewing today. And like I mentioned, I'm just going to put my neckband right sides together with the fabric, and I'm going to make sure that it's all meeting here at the start. And I'm going to go ahead and put that under my presser foot just to ensure that it all catches. And I'm going to sew a little bit. And then once it catches, again, since I'm not using pins or clips, I'm going to just stretch it to meet the other end and then sew as I go. And if you do, or if you are using pins or clips, I would make sure to remove them, obviously, before sewing over them. But again, I'm just manually doing it like this, and now we're going to sew. And before I reach the end, I'm going to let it go. Okay. So here's what that step looks like, and whenever I start my serging, I like to give it a nice tug to make sure that all my tensions are correct. And this is what it should look like. So now we're going to do the same with the other side. So again, everything is right sides together, and I'm going to put it under my presser foot to start. Once it catches, I'm going to stretch my neckband to meet the other end. And the key here is to not stretch the main fabric. And as I get closer to the end, I'm going to let go. All right, so next we are going to put our main pieces right sides together like this. So you just want to put one on top of the other. And then we're going to sew down the side seams. So we're going to sew down this side over here and also on this side over here. So both side seams. And same thing that I did before, everything is right sides together. I'm just lifting my presser foot to make sure that it catches right at the edge of both fabrics. And I'm going to serge all the way down. Now, since this is the hemmed version, I'm just going to clip it right at the edge. If you were doing a banded method, I would leave just a tad bit of a tail just to make sure that it catches. So like on this side, we are going to serge over it. So I'm going to make sure to leave just a little bit of a tail to make sure that everything catches and is enclosed nicely and securely. So again, on the other side, my right sides are together. The raw edges are lined up, and I'm going to lift my presser foot and sew all the way down. And snip. So next we have our straps, and for these I'm just going to put them right sides together because we are going to serge this bottom edge here for both straps to get them ready. So I'm going to do a serge both of them, and y'all should get it by now. I'm just lifting my foot and sewing, and I'm going to take the other one in as well. Lift and sew. going to snip both. Okay, so now we have our straps and our main piece right here. So all I'm going to do is bring this main piece together by folding it in half like this. And you'll notice that our pins are matching up, so that's perfect. Make sure that they are, and make sure that your seam in the middle is lining up nicely. And my pin dropped, that's okay. What I'm going to do is put this inside of our main piece so that everything is right sides together. So here you'll notice that our side seam is matching up with our side seam, and to make sure that they line up perfectly, I'm going to make sure that one of my seams is pointing the opposite direction of each other. So hopefully you can see that this seam is pointing towards the right and this bottom seam is pointing towards the left. So when they are smushed together, they'll line up perfectly. You can add a pin, of course, here, a clip, whatever you're comfortable with. And then you're going to follow along, and these points that we marked initially are going to match up with the very top of our neckband. So I'm just going to transfer these pins. We only need one for this. And then you'll notice that there is a little bit of stretching that we'll have to do once attaching the band like this. But we'll get to that part in a second. And same thing with the other side. I'm going to make sure that the top of my neckband meets with the initial pin that we placed. I'm going to stick it in there. And you'll see again, the top of our strap is a little shorter, so we'll have to stretch, but not by much. And then you'll get that nice gap in the center like this. And you'll have 3 points. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other side, and then we're going to serge the straps on. Okay, now we're back over at my serger, and I just wanted to note that I like starting serging towards the back, so I know that this is the back because remember the neckband for the back was a little shorter than the front. I'm just going to start towards the back, that way the overlap when we go back over is towards the back, just personal preference. But all right, so I'm going to put all of this under my presser foot. I'm going to kind of pick out these threads, make sure that you're removing your pins, clips, whatever you're using. And we are going to serge to start, but as you can see, hopefully, let me move it a little bit. As you can see, if you remember, the strap's a little shorter than my main piece, so I'm just going to stretch it to fit, and you'll be good. And again, just stretch it. I'm going to move this seam towards the bottom. Again, just personal preference. And make sure that I'm removing my pin and everything is lining up. And you are going to keep sewing the strap down just by itself. And again, I'm having to stretch this a little bit, but I just stretch it to fit. Make sure that it's catching. And then for this part, I'm going to overlap my serge stitches just by about 1/2 inch. And for some really nice finish, I'm just going to move everything out of the presser foot and serge off. And then I clip again, just about like 1/2 inch, and I'm going to hold my looper threads, pull them, and snip, and that gives me a really nice clean finish just with the overlap there. So here is what our strap is looking like so far. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the exact same process to the other side. All right, here is what our top is looking like, and I did turn it right side out so you can get more of a clearer picture on what we're working with. as you can see, we do have our exposed serge seams here, and it's only in the shoulder gap. So now you have one of two options. You can top stitch the whole thing, or you can top stitch just the shoulder gap area, and I'll show you what I mean. So if you just fold over the serged seam like this, you could start top stitching from here, go all the way down to the other end and stop here, and that will give you a clean finish on the other side. So it would look something like this. Or you can top stitch all the way around, and what you'll have to do is make sure that you're catching the serge seam all the way around. Either way, I think it'll look nice. And here you can also decide if you're going to use your sewing machine, or if you have a cover stitch, you can use your cover stitch. But today I'm only going to finish up this shoulder gap, especially since I'm working with a white fabric. It'll be not as noticeable, and I'm going to use my sewing machine to top stitch it. But then you also want to hem the bottom, and on the pattern it tells you to hem it 3/4 of an inch, but I'm used to hemming my tops and everything half an inch, so I'm going to go ahead and do that with my cover stitch. So again, you have several options for the top here, and for the bottom hem, if you're using a sewing machine as well, what I like to do is fold my hem and then fold it in again, and it just gives like a really nice clean finish, especially if you're using like a zigzag on your sewing machine. I think that looks really nice and professional as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and finish this off. Okay, so here we have my sewing machine, and I'm going to be using a lightning bolt stitch, which on my machine is a 3. It looks like lightning. And you can also use a small zigzag or any stretch stitch that's your favorite, or again, you could use your cover stitch. You have a few options here. All I'm going to do is, as I mentioned before, fold in this serged edge just like this, and I'm going to start just a tad before the top of our band, and I'm going to slip this into my machine so that it fits kind of snug and it's really easy to work with. Okay, and again, all I'm going to be doing is folding in that edge. If you want to pin, clip, go ahead, but I'm just going to go for it and place it under my machine, and like I said, just go for it. And I want to make sure that everything is folded in, so that's why I'm struggling a little bit. And as I mentioned, I'm just going to go for it, and I'm lining up this edge kind of with the edge of my foot here. There's like a little divot here, and all I'm going to do is back stitch and go for it, making sure that my serged edge is just folded in. And we're going to keep going all the way to the other end. Or I should say all the way till the top of our other neckband. It actually does fit nice and snug in there, so I'm happy about that. Now that we're reaching the end, again, I just want to make sure everything is tucked in. I'm going to go a little bit past and just finish off, and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so here is what the front of the strap looks like all the way around. As you can see, it is a pretty narrow stitch, but I like it like this. And then here is what the back looks like. Again, everything is just nicely tacked down. So now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side and show y'all what it looks like. And here is what both sides finished looks like. Again, you can go all the way around, but I like how this looks, and all you really need to do is just top stitch the gap. So that's perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and, as I mentioned, hem the bottom using my cover stitch. I do have a video on how I hem on my cover stitch if you want to check it out, But all I'm going to do is fold in my fabric, as I mentioned, the 1/2 inch or the 3/4 inch hem, whatever size hem you would like for this top, and I'm going to use my cover stitch to finish it off, and we'll be done with this. Here we have the finished top, and in case you were curious about the hem, this is what I did with my cover stitch. Highly recommend getting one. But yeah, this is the pattern, and if you are doing the banded version instead of the hem, you would attach the band just like we did this one in the round for the straps, except it'll just be a bottom band. And if you're doing the ruffle version, let me know if you want a tutorial on that. I can also do one for y'all. But that is it for this wide strap cami top. Super cute, and I cannot wait to try this on my daughter. I hope you all have a great day, evening, and happy sewing, everybody.